Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Moonshot NFT Podcast. I'm Elliott Matt, joined by my wonderful co-host Matt, and we are back after a very short hiatus to come and, carry on our mission of demystifying the wonderful world of NFTs. Matt, how you doing? Where you been, Matt? Where you been?
Very well, thank you. I've not been anywhere specifically, but I've been busy. It's hard to believe that we are now already early December and rapidly running out of year. My last sort of month has not been quite as exciting as yours. You've been on a very exciting trip, which sounded like a lot of fun.
Yes,
how was that?
The viewers will be picking up on my sun-kissed glow that hopefully is just clinging on. But no, I had the fortunate pleasure to spend a bit of time in the Caribbean. So my brother got married in Antigua. And so me and the whole family jetted off for a couple of weeks to go and relax, but ultimately enjoy what was a very special day for them. And of course, soak a bit of sunshine whilst we were there. So it was very nice, but now it's back to the wonderful, cold, gritty, dark nights of London. As you say, December edges ever nearer to a close and the wonderful Christmas run-up now. But what a year it has been. Goodness me. It feels like I've blinked and the whole thing has gone past. But fortunately, just before I was away, and obviously our last couple of episodes touched on a particular event that we were both at, Matt. Isn't that right?
Yeah, NFT London. Hopefully, if any listeners may have caught our last couple of episodes, we had spent a couple of days in London at the Queen Conference Centre. And yeah, it was one of the few, I think still very few in-person events in London, all about NFTs, but full of people and lots of different subjects, lots of different topics, lots of different insights from our part, I think. And yeah, a good couple of days, which has certainly inspired this episode, particularly around the subject of IRL events focused on NFTs, right?
Absolutely. The Moonshot NFT special all around IRL, in real life, NFT events. So yeah, these are becoming increasingly popular, and certainly throughout this last year, when following the NFT space in the Twitter sphere, like we have been doing, at certain points throughout the year, there were fairly significant events that were held in various locations that caused a humongous buzz. And obviously the world of NFTs largely exists at the moment in Discord, in Twitter, and basically on various NFT marketplaces, which are all websites, right? So it's an entirely virtual experience for the large part, and exploring how people are, just getting together to discuss these things and progressing in real life is quite interesting, but also how NFTs, also how people are using NFTs and bridging the gap between the digital world and the physical realm is, I think, of increasing interest and in increasing supply. And I think it's going to play an increasingly important part in widespread adoption as this technology continues to grow and people begin to figure out more creative ways of using it. And certainly there was loads of hype online around it. NFT NYC was the big one. But let's just give our wonderful listeners a little lowdown of what these NFT events even are. Like, what even happens at an NFT event?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's, if we go back a little bit, anyone that's listened to the previous few episodes, like NFTs really took off in 2020. So it was when people were stuck behind their computers, lockdowns all around the globe. People didn't have a choice. Like, I'm sure it would have been very different had that not been the case. Probably in-person events may have been a much more common thing right from the start. Potentially not, I guess, because it is such a digital currency, digital virtual experience. And so maybe that was just destined to happen right either way. But of course, it wasn't an option back when we first got into it back in 2020 and then, 21, because of they just didn't exist. Everyone was either on Twitter or in different kind of discords for different projects and that sort of stuff. It's very fascinating now that, of course, there is a general desire for people to get back in person at events now that there's no reason why not. And so the benefits of the in-person events that have been putting names and putting faces to names that you recognize and see on Twitter. It tends to be the same sort of people that you do, even though it's only a virtual relationship, you do start to recognize the names, and meeting these people in person is a great part of it. That's a massive sort of part of the experience. This sort of conference style events that like NFT London, there's lots of talks like keynote speeches, all that sort of stuff. So you are listening to the founders of projects, people who have really, they're in it. It's their business now. It's what they're doing 24/7. So there's so much to learn about. I mean, they're telling their story, they're sharing their experience. And I think from a collector's standpoint, as I see myself and kind of our Moonshot DAO, that's essentially what we are, right? It's an investment club and we're collectors of NFTs. It's so interesting to be able to actually listen in the same room directly in person, hear from the founders of projects that we might be interested in, we might want to know a little bit more about. Of course, it's just the best way. It's, would you buy a house without going to see it, just based on the images that you see on Rightmove or whatever, on the estate agent's website? Exactly. You might. Some people have no choice. I remember you telling me a few months back just how quickly property in London was going, and you've almost got to make that decision without actually being able to go and see the place in the flesh. And of course, that's essentially what we did in the early days of NFTs. We didn't get to speak to the people that had created the image or founded the project and all that sort of stuff. But with these events, you can.
Exactly. And arguably, it's a sad fact, unfortunately, that right now 99% of NFT projects are not worth a lot. And had our buyers been able to go and see the true people behind those projects, one would argue that maybe they could have made some smarter investment decisions and maybe wouldn't have pulled the trigger on so many things. So it is interesting that we say that, because we have referenced many times, bet on the jockey, not the horse. And yes, you can obviously gather information around people online, but nothing is better than actually seeing them in the flesh, seeing how they converse with other people, and more importantly, talk about their project at a significant event, at a conference, because that then is a good way for them to establish their credibility, of you to see it firsthand, and then make wiser investment decisions. And I think the whole seeing people IRL, it's an interesting topic in the crypto space, right, which prides itself on this decentralized nature and how you can be totally anonymous if you want to. And whilst I think there are definitely benefits to that on the privacy side of things, which is obviously all important, that we all have the right levels of privacy at points that we need. But if you're going to be investing significant chunks of money, which at the moment, particularly on Ethereum, like we like to play around with, the entry point this time 8 months ago to most NFTs, and to a lot, still is incredibly high. And if you are going to be chucking 5, 10, 15, 20 grand into without, it is exactly like putting a deposit down on a house without going to see the house. It's a little bit crazy. So that is definitely one sort of benefit of it. And
and I think because they're a lot of them, I think they're talking for the first time in front of a group of people. Like, I've noticed a few of them, they're nervous. It's not their comfort zone. But because of that, they're prepared, and they're also sharing news about what's coming up. Right? You remember when we first got involved in even things like the Bored Ape Yacht Club or Mutant Ape Yacht Club, they all had these roadmaps, and they were just drawings and sketches that made very little sense. And there was a roadmap on a web page that said, we're going to do this at this date, and then 6 weeks later it'll be this, and 2 months later it'll be this. And the benefit of actually seeing and hearing from these people in person is they'll actually tell you what they're going to do. And you can make sense of it a lot more. You can ask questions. You get a lot more information on what are their plans. Because as we know now, a lot of these roadmaps didn't pan out.
Exactly. And a lot of the business models behind it just did not work in their favor. So you would have these, in essence, because what you could do at one point is you could, as a random teenager in the world who's discovered that these NFTs are popping off, literally create a super cheap website online, pay someone on Fiverr to make a 10,000 NFT profile picture collection of some cartoon bears, create a Twitter account, interact, do some fake giveaways, and then all of a sudden mint out a project for 0.08 ETH on a 10,000 project, and literally just bank like hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds, with the promise of then delivering on some roadmap. And that was very similar to back in the days of the dot-com bubble, when everyone was literally throwing money at businesses that just had .com in their name, regardless of whether their business plan had been thoroughly checked through. People were just wanting to throw money hand over fist to try and capture and get in on this hype before it died down. And obviously what happened then happened now. History tends to repeat itself in various different forms. And as a result, lots of projects run by potentially inexperienced people, potentially people looking to capitalize on the hype, then have these ambitious roadmaps which they use to generate the hype in the first place that they are unable to deliver on. And a bit of a cycle of pain. Whereas, of course, seeing someone in the flesh, and we went to NFT London, and how many speakers were there in those 2 days. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, more than 800. more than I think it was close to 1,000, wasn't it? It was definitely more than 800, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so the tenet of NFT London's ethos was, we're going to give everyone in the space a platform, which I think sounds great. In reality, what that means is they have to condense 1,000 speakers into a 2-day event, which, if you crunch the numbers on the average slot time that a speaker must have, is very small. And so there were lots of 5-minute speeches, 10-minute speeches that were very rushed. But what you found, though, and what we were able to do, was hear from founders of these various projects. And I don't know, it was very insightful and quite telling, because it's easy to post about stuff online and look like you know what you're doing. But the minute you hear someone speaking about something, you get a real good tell. It goes off, and you can either tell this guy knows what he's talking about, or he doesn't. And there was definitely a little bit of that, which was interesting, which, again, you only get in person.
Yeah, and because even the investments that we made through the DAO, it's, as you said earlier, it's not small chunks of money. So you want to know as much as possible. And therefore, if anyone, hopefully there are some people listening to this by now who are interested in getting started, if you haven't got started yet, and potentially, because it's still such a good time, do your own research and all that sort of stuff, but it's such a good time to get involved and get started, in my opinion anyway, for what that's worth. But that means if you really are thinking about it and you're genuinely interested, then the more you can find out, the more confident you can be of your investment. And going to and having the opportunity to meet founders, people behind the projects, is now possible. And therefore, if it's possible and you're thinking about making some investments, maybe you want to consider going to some in-person events and making the most of it, and using that as part of your decision-making process as to what NFTs to invest in. So that's why we thought it'd be useful to share some details about what in-person events are actually happening in 2023.
100%. Because going to these in-person events is like getting a real boots-on-the-ground read of what's going on, versus just the stuff that you can pick up in the kind of echo chamber that is the online realm. And yeah, some of our big purchase decisions have been driven as a result of people that you saw at an IRL event, Matt. But yes, 2023, what sort of events exist? What's on your radar?
Yeah, so I think we talked about, several episodes ago, we talked about my experience from having been to VCon in 2022, right? Back in May, I think it was. VCon, which is VFriends, Gary V's project. The tokens, the Series 1 VFriends holders, he said right from the start, as an owner of a VFriends Series 1, you would receive a ticket to this super conference, NFT conference, for 3 years. So 2022 was the first one, 2023 is the next one, and then there will be another one in 2024. And yeah, absolutely. My experience from that, it was such an insight, and it's why we really got even more involved in NFTs. So for me, early in the new year, a few things that I'm aware of already. First thing that I've looked at, which I'm genuinely interested in myself, is NFT Paris. This is organized, I believe, by the same crowd that are responsible and organized NFT London and NFT NYC. It's on the 24th and 25th of February in Paris. It's not as expensive as the London one, which is nice to know, because the London one was pricey, but I think it's kind of still 300 quid, I think, or so per ticket. But it's, as someone based in the UK, it's not a million miles away. It's a nice place to go anyway. I haven't been to Paris since before the pandemic, and I love it there. So I'm looking at some of these as an opportunity to, would it be nice to have 3-4 days in some of these places? You know, Paris is definitely up there, and therefore, why not coincide with an NFT event and go to that at the same time? So that is the very first one on my list for, February 24th, 25th next year in Paris.
100%. And so that will, I imagine, function very similarly to NFT London, which I guess for the viewers, if you haven't tuned into our NFT London specials, where we actually reported live, is very much like any other big conference that you'd expect in any industry. It's a big get-together, normally at a big conference centre of sorts, where there's all manner of interesting booths and then keynote speakers around particular topics. And so, good one to go. In particular, if you're interested in, obviously, finding out about how NFTs are being used in different areas. Because what was quite interesting at NFT London and what I'm sure they'll carry over to NFT Paris is all of the different sort of verticals, the different industries, the different like categories of speakers and stages that they had, because they explored NFTs, the laws behind it, the taxes behind it, NFTs in music, NFTs in gaming, NFTs in business, NFTs in fashion, NFTs in flipping anything and everything you can think of, which was pretty surprising, but also quite interesting. And you can picture it back as well to paint the comparison. Can you imagine going to some of these early conferences that would have happened back in the day, just as the internet was becoming a thing, and the early adopters and the innovators and the early businesses there were just getting off the ground, and you were hearing the sort of pioneers behind the big businesses that are now the $1 trillion market cap global giants, as well as the ideas that they had, and of course all the ones that absolutely crashed and burned. For me, I see those, and what I found most interesting about NFT London was precisely that. Like, it felt like you're discovering the very early little insights as to what people are really beginning to do with this technology in its really quite infant stage, and that you're on the precipice of exciting things that might come. So I assume that's what NFT Paris will be like as well.
No, very much. Based on what I've read online, it's also, there's more of a, I've noticed that more of the people that I follow, more of the American people that are involved in some of the projects that we're part of, are speaking at the Paris event as well, more so than we're at London. Yeah, perhaps would we like to admit on here that Paris is more attractive to Americans than London is. I'm sure that can't be true, but perhaps it is. But yeah, I noticed like a few recognizable names, much more so than in London, to be honest. So like some proper headliners from a point of view of influencers and people, significant people in big projects are going to be there. So I get the impression it could be good.
Yeah, so what would let's imagine you have got your ticket and you're off to NFT Paris. What would your personal objectives be from that event? What would you look to gain from it?
For me, it's still about trying to meet as many sort of new people as possible. In terms of, not as many, because I don't want to meet 100 people. I'd rather meet 5 that I actually then want to stay in touch with. But just, yeah, get to know people primarily from projects that we're already in, because then there's a shared sort of experience there, and it enables us to talk about how do we get involved in the project that we're involved in, whether it's VFriends or CryptoPunks or whatever it might be. And then you're part of their club, right? You're part of their tribe almost. So then when you have conversations around what else do you know? What other projects are you involved with? Yeah. So at NFT London on the Saturday, there was a VFriends meetup, and I managed to meet a girl that is one of the moderators in the World of Women Discord, a lovely girl called Kashvi. And so she is heavily involved in the World of Women project. She knows all the people. She's still a student, so she's doing it part-time. Or I think she's taking a year out, so she's doing it full-time at the moment, but when she goes back to studying, she'll be doing it part-time, I think. But she was just so in the know because she essentially works for them. And so to hear about like what's going on, and it was fascinating, and it just reinforces we're involved in the right project. This is the right place to be. It was helpful from that perspective. So for me, yeah, if we get to Paris, then it's for the same reason. We're still at that point where, you know, we've got our close sort of circle of friends and family that we've dragged into this, and they've got involved and are now very interested in it. But still, I'm looking to grow that circle of people that I can then talk to about it, just to broaden our horizons a little bit as well, and find out more about other projects and that sort of stuff.
Right, yeah, it's funny you mentioned the meetups as well, because I think we should explore that. I have a bit of a view at the moment that the world's social skills tend to be regressing as a result of the technological age that has evolved in front of us. Back in the day, you had to go and speak to people face to face. If you wanted to send them a message, you had to sit down and write it with a pen. And nowadays, obviously, our communication is so digital and so virtual, only exacerbated tenfold due to COVID, like everyone will know very well, to the point where now actually forming relationships and building a network in real life is a thing that a lot of people find awkward and a bit of a struggle. But, of course, NFTs enable these somewhat tribal-like communities, like you just said, where the limited nature of each collection means that there is a set amount of owners in this community. And therefore, if you own a particular one of these things, the community sense around it is very strong. And that has been a core driver of a lot of the hype and speculation around the NFT market up until this point, because the community formed the basis of really the interest. And if it was a community then that all of a sudden gained some traction and had a perceived value that people would want to be involved with, that's then when the FOMO kicks in. It attracts all these eyeballs, the people wanting to join in, willing to pay the higher prices, and as a result, the floor price goes absolutely insane, which is exactly what we saw with Bored Ape Yacht Club when all of a sudden Justin Bieber's buying in and all these basketball players are buying in, and Snoop Dogg and so on and so forth. And that aspect of community has led me and you to go to a in real life meetup. I literally at one last week as well. And of course, then likely many more on the horizon. But what are your thoughts around how that has facilitated people getting together and instantly having something in common, a shared view, shared perspective, almost like a friendship, without ever having met each other before, which previously would be a little bit strange?
Yeah, I think it's an area that as you say, I've now been to 2 or 3, and I'm not very good at meeting new people. I definitely wouldn't class myself as an extrovert in any way. Yeah, so I'm one of those awkward kind of, maybe I should just get my phone out and pretend I'm busy or reading a text or something and just stand at the bar and order another pint. Yeah, no, and I would absolutely just get in my own way of meeting people. It's been a very different experience at certainly the last 2 VFriends meetups because of this shared experience, because of this fact that actually we're all there for the same thing. We're all there to meet and get to know people who have all, in one way or another, got this shared experience of owning a VFriend. And of course, it's not just because it is so early with NFTs and it is so new, everyone has a story as to how they got involved. It's not just we own the same pair of shoes or something like own shoes. But NFTs are a bit different still. And so everyone wants to tell their story. And I guess what I did notice certainly at the last one is because there have now been quite a few meetups. Some people know a lot of other people, and therefore they're almost like a little reunion. They're getting back together, they know each other, and if you're not part of that group, then it feels difficult trying to get in. But actually, in my experience so far, everyone has been so welcoming and receptive and just keen for more and more people to get involved. The other thing I'm absolutely useless at is staying in touch afterwards. I would blame busyness, but that's just a cop-out. I'm just not comfortable with that follow-up text or Twitter message or whatever it might be. We're all in the same Discord. We can, we're all, we're all in the same Discord. We could be messaging and to really continue communication and all that sort of stuff, but I absolutely need to do that more or want to do that more. But the meetups are great. They're informal, they're unofficial, so they're not like the project has not put these together. In most cases, it's just a group of the community basically saying, we're all in town, as was the case with NFT London, we're all in town for that. Why don't we book out a room in a bar at the same time and just go and have a load of drinks and get to know each other a bit more? So they've been brilliant. And I think, that's the other thing around these events, especially NFT London, NFT Paris, I'm sure, NFT NYC. I've read online from many people that NFT, in particular in New York, don't go to the events. They're not really worth the money is what I've read, but be there because all of the meetups and events around the actual conference are very valuable, and that's where to be.
Interesting.
And I'm sure I almost feel a little bit bad saying that because, of course, those people wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the conference itself. So I feel like don't be too tight and just don't try to avoid the ticket price just because. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a bit harsh. If the majority of people did that, you'll find out in 2 years' time the event won't be there, so you won't be able to go and do all these meetups because no one bought tickets. So I think I wouldn't go to Paris next February and not buy a ticket for NFT Paris. But try to get into some of the events around the outside.
Sort of satellite meetups that go on.
Yeah, that wouldn't sit well.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just an easier experience when you go to a particular meetup for CryptoPunks holders, let's say, or VFriends holders, or whatever it might be, because you got that instant kudos, that tribal feeling, instant things to talk about that make it a little bit easier than when you're at a massive event with loads of people.
For sure. And I also think it's like paying for anything. Once you've made an investment in, it could be an online course or something, the minute you've paid some money for it, you're compelled to finish it, right? You want to then do it because you've invested in it. If I just went to Paris and said, I'm just going to go to a few satellite events, I could easily then be like, I'm really enjoying these drinks in the whatever hotel, and can I be asked? No, I can't really be bothered to go and, like I said, put myself in the uncomfortable position of meeting new people and all that sort of stuff. I'm just not going to go. Whereas if you buy a ticket and you go and you're like, I bought it now, so I've got to get something out of it, because that's what this is all about. This is not a social thing. This is an investment opportunity, and this is why we're doing this. It's nice as a side benefit to meet people and hopefully make some friends and all that sort of stuff. But actually, why are we doing it? We want to be able to choose investments and get involved with projects for the long term and potential returns and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, buy a ticket, take it seriously, and but do enjoy the meetups and satellite events at the same time. Recognize that there will be so much more going on outside of just the conference, which is stuff you want to get.
It's useful information to know. No, very wise words. Yeah. So what would you say then, Matt, from your experience, what have the people at these events been like? Because I can imagine some of our viewers may carry across some preconceived notions, shall we say, of the anticipated demographic they would expect to bump into if they attended one of these events. I would hazard a guess that it would be heavily male skewed, probably quite young males, given the nature of the space. Some businessy guys, some potentially nerdy guys. But what is your experience?
So I think the best event to talk about, both VCon and NFT London, it genuinely was a real mixture. Like, it wasn't actually, it probably was predominantly male, but from a 60-40 perspective, not an 80-20. It wasn't as extreme as you might think it would be. All ages. Yes, again, more younger people than older people, but plenty of people there in their 50s and 60s and plus. So a real broad spectrum. And some that are there because of work, because it's become their living, it's their job, it's their source of income. They're either an artist or a photographer or looking to join a company that is somehow using NFTs, if they're not already in a company that's selling NFTs. So a lot of it, we felt almost the minority that our actual day jobs were nothing to do with NFTs. It was like, no, we're collectors. And we weren't alone in that respect. But collectors seem to be, certainly a couple of the people that we met in London, they were like, they had thousands of NFTs. We're like, okay, we don't have thousands. Maybe a few, tens perhaps, close to 100 maybe, but not, there were different levels of collectors. But I felt like the majority were there as people that work in it as an industry almost. This is especially photographers, musicians, creative people who in the main, certainly from all the ones we met, were very, very, very nice. Like, some try and sell. They want to just tell you all about whatever they're doing, but that's life, right? You're always going to find that.
Any sort of conference-style event, right? That's ultimately, a lot of businesses spend a lot of money on their stands to go there and network and ultimately try and do business. And so, can't demand for trying. But I would second what you said in the sense that I was very surprised at NFT London at just how diverse array the people were there. I thought there was very good gender split, very good age split, very good ethnic split as well. Like, it was a real melting pot of different individuals, different cultures, different everything. And it took me a little bit by surprise. I did expect there to be some sort of skew. Serves me right for having that preconceived notion. Yeah. Of course, as we just discussed, though, there are plenty of people who see this as a big opportunity. And you have, I guess, the active networkers, the people who go there with a mission, which, again, can't blame anyone for doing that. It's a very efficient way, especially if you're going to be spending quite a decent amount of money. Some of these events are your hundreds of pounds is your ticket, and you go in there on a sole mission to be effective and find the right people and ultimately seek out an answer to whatever solution you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think in that respect, it's going to be very interesting in the new year, how the audience might change a little bit in terms of Because, as we've already said, and you said at the start of this episode, it's such a very different market now. And it's not this sort of, there's no certainty at all that it's the right thing to do, and there's no guarantee of any returns. And of course, it's put so many people off. And then, not to mention all the disasters and carnage that has come in the crypto world over the last few weeks. It's like a lot of people will have lost interest altogether, I'm quite sure. And so I think it's going to be really interesting next year. And my gut feel is that it will just mean that the people left are the really serious people that are committed for the long term. They've got such conviction and belief about this being the future of whatever it is they're doing that I think that in a way it helps. It's harsh for the people who haven't done well and perhaps have lost some money and all that sort of stuff. But if you're new, which I think we've always aimed this podcast at, like bringing new people into NFTs and onboarding people and explaining what it's all about. If you're new and you've been fortunate enough to not lose anything, then it's actually a real benefit that the people left are serious about it at the moment. And so I think there could be smaller events next year, perhaps, but better, more quality.
100%. As you said, I always see this very much like the dot-com bubble, as I keep mentioning. But when you have these times of market capitulation, when times go south and, the money runs dry for a lot of people, you have this thinning of the herd, right? And that is what we're going through now. And for a lot of people, it's very painful, and I absolutely empathise with that. But what will emerge out of the end should be the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles of the NFT space, right? And as with any big bubble mania that's happened in history, be it NFTs, be it Bitcoin, be it the dot-com bubble, be it the tulip mania bubble, right? You get a flood of people trying to come in and capitalize on this, building their own various little businesses. And actually, the ones who really are on board with the mission and believe in the underlying thing itself, they're the ones that emerge out the other end victorious and ready to build things that ultimately attract huge amounts of customers and you can impact the world in a way. And all the others that were just there for the quick cash grab quickly get thinned out because they're now onto the sort of next thing. And that definitely feels like what we're going through at the moment. And as you said, bring NFTs now, it's a blessing because there's so many people that unfortunately discovered it a few months ago when prices were ridiculously high and everything is now crashed. I think we're fortunate in a way, Matt, that we discovered them a bit earlier on, because we've had plenty of mistakes that we've made. I can certainly look back into my little wallet and see some of the stupid stuff I bought at the start. But again, that was towards the beginning where I got a few random projects, and luckily they didn't cost me much. So even now they're worth zero. I've not lost. I didn't bet the house, so to speak, which I'm grateful for, because when you're discovering all this for the first time and you get that rush of, oh my God, this is going up at a rapid rate. I want to pile my life savings in because I'm really confident in it. And then it doesn't pan out. That is a really unfortunate situation, which takes a bit of time of immersing yourself in the market, understanding it, feeling the roller coaster of emotions that is trading any asset, is the truth of it, before you can obviously come out the other end on the good side.
Yeah, and that's so true. You've only got to think back to the whirlwinds we got sucked into, really. Let's face it, between what, 6 of us, we bought close to 1,000 books in the second half of 2021. It's because it meant that we would get a chance of, or I can't remember. My memory is so terrible. Can't remember exactly what each book or each lot of 12 books meant for us. But of course, it gave us the possibility of getting the VFriends Series 2 or whatever it was. It was very easy at that time to really overextend. And I think you're absolutely right. Like anyone coming in right now, yes, perhaps you'll be wishing that you'd got involved when you could buy an ape for £300 and then it turns into £300,000. But it would be much worse to have bought in at £300,000 and it's now only worth £60,000 or whatever it might be. It is absolutely a good time. I think just linked to a couple of projects, another 2 events that I'm particularly interested in for next year. It's a much sort of bigger investment in terms of if you're a UK listener, because they're both in the States. But one exciting thing, we've talked about Moonbirds before, I'm pretty sure. We've talked about Moonbirds, and that is part of this Proof Collective. The Proof Pass was the original token that Kevin Rose and colleagues created, and so a proof pass. There were only 1,000 of them, I think. That got you in their ecosystem right from the beginning. And then they launched their project Moonbirds, which proof pass holders automatically got one, or perhaps even got two. And then since then they released their third sort of series, which is Oddities. But that world of proof and Moonbirds and Oddities, they're holding their own conference in 2023, which is in LA, and it's from the 11th to the 13th of May. They haven't said yet. They basically said tickets are gonna go on sale and be released in January. So they haven't said whether they're doing a similar thing to how VFriends do it, with holders receive a ticket, or perhaps tickets will just be open to anyone to purchase. Who knows? But I think based on recent events where, like, for example, at Art Basel in Miami, that's just happened in early December, Proof had a day where they took over this venue and they had almost like a mini meetup, but it was a proper organized official event organized by that project, and it looked great. I've read so many things. You're in the Moonbirds community, Elliott, right? So you probably know even more than me. You're a holder, and so the sense I get is that when those groups get together, it's very insightful, it's educational, it's fun, and yeah, I'm very interested in that. It's called Proof of Conference. So proofofconference.xyz is the website, and not really many details on it at the moment, but tickets will be released starting in January 23. So that one interests me. And then just after that, so that's the 11th to 13th of May in LA, and just after that in Indianapolis is VCon. So that's from the 18th to the 20th of May, which I'll definitely be at. Very much going to organize to get there and be there for that, because VCon in 2022 was such a good experience. So that is, as a holder of a VFriends Series 1, you automatically receive a ticket to go to that, but then they'll immediately be on sale on the secondary market. So they will be available to non-holders. It will be interesting because last year they sold for a pretty significant price initially, like immediately. People that didn't hold a VFriends were then willing to spend £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 on a ticket, because that's what it costs to go to a Gary Vee event anyway. But then actually, after a while, kind of a few weeks in, they dropped right down to a few £100s. And my advice this time around would be jump in, don't react. Don't let FOMO drive you on to spend a fortune. Just be patient. They'll be selling right up to the event. So if it's of interest, then just sit back and watch and see what happens, because they'll be available for sale. And yeah, because of course, not all VFriends Series 1 holders will want to go or even be able to go. So they'll receive a ticket free of charge. So anything they then sell it for, if they can't, is a bonus to them, right? There's not a great point in them holding on to that ticket and just not going.
Entire profit for them, isn't it? Because it's basically just totally free. Very wise word. VCon does look very cool, because they had a very top list of speakers, didn't they, last year? Logan Paul was there, Snoop Dogg was there. Lots of very big, influential people in the crypto space, because that was where was Snowfro there, the man behind the squiggle, amongst many others, which is pretty cool just to go and see those people and see all the big sort of celebrities and the big names that are getting involved in the space. So yeah, hopefully I'll be there with you, Matt. We can do a live.
Yeah, and I think the way to look at it, because would you really fly 8, 9, 10 hours just to go to an NFT conference? Perhaps not. Although that is what we did when we went to VCon last year, but turn it into a holiday. That's why I'm really excited to look at it now, because it's what's the plans for 2023? What are the travel plans? When are we going to take some time off? What's the plan? And if you can build it around some of these events, if you're interested enough to do that sort of thing, then I think why not? I think it's just such a good way of doing it that it's become like a bit of a hobby for us anyway, right? So if we can spend our free time and even holiday time finding out more and learning and meeting new people, and they're all in great places like this. From watching all of the different events in Miami that took place between the 1st and the 3rd of December just recently, it was like painful not being there because there was so much going on and so many good pictures, and World of Women gala that looked amazing. G Money had he did this new launch with his 9DCC fashion brand. So they did a collaboration with Snowfro, the Squiggles, Chroma Squiggles. They were minting NFTs and then also getting these t-shirts produced with the 9DCC and the Squiggle on it as well. It was just that looked really great. And because it was an in-person event, like G Money had to reveal himself, and he's doxed, as they call it, so like everyone now knows what he looks like. I don't think, apparently I read the other day, he's still not telling anyone his actual name or anything like that, but yeah, that just looked brilliant, just looked really good. And why wouldn't you want to go to Miami for a few days?
Exactly.
Yeah,
a great way to tie in a bit of travel, a bit of holidays with some interesting events, and hopefully discover some very interesting stuff and learn a few interesting things. Exactly. I guess to summarize your little roundup then for 2023, NFT Paris, 24th, 25th of Feb. Then there's a blockchain life event taking place in Dubai, 27th, 28th of Feb. Then we got NFT LA, obviously in LA, 20th to the 23rd of March. The Big Proof Conference, as we just talked about, 11th to the 13th of May. Then the big one, NFT NYC, that will no doubt be back with a bang this year, 12th to 14th of April. And then the Mighty VCon, 18th to 20th of May. Gary V coming back for round 2, and I imagine his will be very good this year, having got the first one out the way, because you learn a hell of a lot of things when you put on a big event like this. There's always a lot of teething issues.
Absolutely.
And lots of things you can do better. So,
yeah, and he was very open about that after last year. He was like, this one was a huge learning experience. The next one is going to be even better. I thought it was great anyway, but he was like, you'll be amazed at what we're going to do in 2023. Yeah, I think very exciting and lots to look forward to on that front.
There we are. Lovely stuff. Hopefully, Matt, I'll be joining you at several of these, and we'll have quite the fun year next year. But to our listeners, hopefully we'll see you there as well. Matt, any closing remarks?
No, only that we must remember, if we do manage to get some of these together, that we'll do some episodes from these places, hopefully collar a few people that we can interview and that sort of stuff as well, because even if you can't be there in person, hopefully we can take you there somehow and share our experience in the moment and make sure that our listeners do get the benefit of our presence at these events as well. And whatever insights we can share, I think still, as we keep saying, there's an opportunity in this world, in this place. It's worth doing some research. It's worth looking into the different projects. It is not dead in any way. There's so much still happening. It's still an exciting time. So I think in terms of, if you're a planner and you like to look at the year ahead and think, right, you go around the kind of 7 areas, the finances, the health, the business, the relationships, all the sort of plan as to what you want to get out of a whole year, because I'm certainly of the belief that it's your choice what next year looks like, no one else's. And whatever you decide you can make it happen. So in relation to NFTs and investments, the same thing applies, but you got to do the work and you got to do your own research and find out. There's lots of fun things to look forward to, I would say.
Absolutely. No, couldn't agree more, Matt. Couldn't be more. I would say that some of these events will be really good. Some of them will not be that good, but a large proportion of it is what you make of it, right? You could go to any one of these events with a closed mind and just hate it, and it'll be terrible, and you'll regret ever going. Or you can approach it with an open mind and go and have some engaging conversations, give people a chance, maybe push yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit, and see what rewards await for you on the other side. I certainly think there'll be lots of alpha to be gathered from these events, and we'll, of course, do our job to our noble listeners to bring back that and share it with you. But there we are. I'm looking forward to it. Matt, thank you for joining me. As always, it's been a true pleasure.
Good to see you. Look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. To all of our wonderful listeners, we appreciate you. Thank you. Don't forget to share, subscribe, do whatever makes you feel good inside. And of course, as is customary, we'll see you later. And to the moon. Woo! Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff.
Very good.